Hello and welcome to today's live stream. Whether you're joining live or whether you're watching the replay, I am very excited to have you here and also very excited to welcome my guest, who is a LinkedIn expert, Linnea Johnson. I'm going to bring Linnea on in a moment, and here she is. Hi, Linnea. So today,
New Zealand, and hello, thank you so much. What a lovely piece of music to start the show with, Sarah. That's you playing, I'm right, yes?
Yeah, it is. It is me playing. Yes, I know. I thought I'd put that in. It's always nice to have it there.
Well, I think it's just lovely, and the fact that you can do it yourself is amazing. So well done with that.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice of you. And so I thought for a moment, let me just maybe set the scene for what we are going to talk about today. And I think it's very important to consider the fact that we both know how important video is now, pretty much anywhere, but also particularly on LinkedIn. And so today is very short and sharp and to the point, which I guess leads me to my first thought. And we'll talk technical aspects of LinkedIn as well as the communication skills part of that visibility on video, because that's what this is all about, building that trust and connection for you watching. Linnea, why video? Why now? Exactly why now?
I think that LinkedIn has been a late adopter of video, Sarah. A lot of other platforms have well beaten them to it, but in the more recent year and a half, it has really doubled down on video. It has made more features available that we can be using on LinkedIn, and it is really supporting video. And I think too that video is an excellent way for business professionals to be more visible, more credible, and to be seen as experts in their field, because you know how important it is to show up in person at events when you're presenting. And video on LinkedIn is the equivalent of that. So why now? Because LinkedIn has made it available. And I don't think that we can really go past that in terms of it being something we should all be thinking about for our LinkedIn presence right now.
Perfect. And also I think too, because the organic reach, let's face it, has dropped recently and people are talking about that. So anything that we can do to get ourselves out there is going to make a big difference.
It certainly is. And, you know, I think as well, Sarah, people respond well to video. They like the visual cues. They like to see the person they're interacting with. They like to see the smiles on their face, the body language. And so that's where I think it comes in for business professionals, as we can come across as professional, business-like, but also human, authentic, and ourselves. So there's a lot of reason, I think, to be looking at video on LinkedIn right now. And the algorithm supporting it is just one of those things. And it's difficult now with visibility. You've probably noticed it on your own posts. I imagine that visibility is harder to get than it was once upon a time.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely true, isn't it? And I think too that this idea that when I think about when I'm working with clients and we think about this balancing out of warmth versus professional presence, and it's one of the things that I teach is this sense of having that professional presence, but it's balancing it because we want to have that connection and that trust, and we build that through being authentic. But sometimes people say to me, well, is being yourself enough on video? And it is, but it may not quite be enough. Sometimes we actually need more energy.
Yes.
For example, I'm an introvert, and I had to learn very early on that to get through the screen, I needed to be much more energetic than I was naturally going to be. So being myself wasn't actually enough. And then thinking, okay, where do I need to have that professional line? And also the language that goes with that, the words that go with that professionalism, or where am I actually going to be more casual? And of course, on LinkedIn with the video, we don't want to be too casual. I've seen casual, and it's not great.
Well, that's true. But I do think there's a role for being more informal. Perhaps too casual is too far. So an example of that is, for me at weekends, I'll often do a video about my garden. I'm a great gardener. I love it. And so I'm often recording videos in my garden, which I share on LinkedIn. I confine those to the weekend when it's more appropriate to be informal. And I don't do those as part of my business, if you like, in terms of during the week when I'm posting more professional style posts. But people seem to respond to that because they can see me in a different setting. I'm not wearing a jacket, I'm wearing more casual clothing, but they feel that they've got to know or are getting to know a different side of me, because we're all multifaceted, aren't we? And the way we present on screen for business situations just like this is different from the way we are informally. So I think there is a role for both, but it depends on how that comes across and when and how you do it, plus whether your audience responds well, because it's just like being on stage. You need to respond to what your audience is giving you in terms of feedback.
Yes, that's so, so true. And I think that's one of the hard things, isn't it, about actually making a video, because you're on your own, you're pressing record, it's what's going to happen. All of that comes into play. And so maybe it might be worth chatting about a few tips about, certainly from me, and I know a lot of you today listening will be fully aware of the vast majority, if not all of these ideas, but it's always good to have a reminder as well. And one of them ideas is that you don't just want to be kind of cut off at the neck. And while I'm not showing a lot of my body today, I could even go further back and show more. A lot of people are still doing a bit neck orientated. And it's just not natural, is it? It's like, again, people coming in too close. I won't do that. It would frighten you. But, you know, we don't want that too close sense. And also, it's really nice to see people's hands. Now, when I think about that body language and that gesturing, I am a gesturer. I do gesture a lot just in order to think. I'm one of those people. And most of us are. But I think it's very important to consider perhaps being deliberate about your gestures. And I know that when I first watched myself back on video, and I'll come to that again in a moment, I was shocked by the amount of times that my hands were, I'm doing it deliberately now, kind of moving around in the screen. So we love to see the verbal and non-verbal. We do really like to see people's hands moving, but I certainly learned that I actually had to keep my hands down at certain points and make sure that they weren't showing, because it can be distracting and off-putting, and it's about being deliberate as well.
I think too, Sarah, it's where how you're framed, because you and I are on landscape here. So if we start to wave our hands around, it does look a bit odd. And it's easier to keep your hands below the screen level. And I'm like you, I'm a hand waver. And I think it's part of the energy that you bring to a video. But I agree, it can be a bit over the top. But when you're doing a portrait orientation video, which is the best for LinkedIn and just a couple of minutes long, no longer than that, then people are going to see more of you. Now, the way that shows up in the feed is it does zoom in on you. So you do need to be a bit further back than you might think. And part of the reason for that is not just because it zooms in a bit, but also LinkedIn adds content top and bottom of the post when it shows up in the feed. And this is particularly so on the mobile app. But also what happens is that you need captions on your video on LinkedIn. Now, it's amazing to me how many people forget this very simple thing. And it's very easy to add captions to LinkedIn videos because LinkedIn will do it for you. And you don't even have to worry about it. And where they usually place the captions is sort of in the mid-lower third of it. So it sits above the wording that LinkedIn puts at the bottom, and it sits well below the top of your head, which is going to be at the top where there is more content, and it can sit there in the middle. You just don't want captions right across your face. So you have two choices. You can do your own captions off LinkedIn, and that's what we tend to do, or you can do them on LinkedIn and use LinkedIn's own captions, which you can then edit, but you can't move them around. So when you're recording, you need to be aware of that, and that then leads back to the hand gestures and about being too generous with your hand gestures, because I agree, I think it can be a bit off-putting.
Yes, the over generosity. I love that. Good way to put it. And that's very interesting for those tips. Thank you. I'm sure that's very useful for people as well. I did have a glance to one side, which is quite funny because I was looking at the comments and someone has commented, Americo, Welcome. Saying any advice on how to look less distracted? Because hosting and managing a conversation in a studio at the same time is not always easy. Absolutely. Totally agree. Any thoughts on that one, Linnea?
Yes, I'm very lucky. I have a producer for all my events, and she's here in the background helping us today, Chef Ferguson, and I can tell you it makes a huge difference to me because I'm like you. I can concentrate on talking and on listening to what the person who's on the screen with me is saying, but as for looking at the comments and then trying to determine whether to put one on the screen or whether to answer a question, for example, I find that a lot more difficult. So I think when you have a guest on like we have today, it does give you an opportunity as the host just to quietly have a look and see what's going on over there, but not to have yourself totally distracted from what's going on in terms of the conversation. So I think practice is the answer for this. Americo, the more you do it, the easier it becomes, but having someone else with you on the screen is a definite help. Having someone in the background is even more help. So I'm always hugely thankful that she is willing to come on and make sure I don't mess these things up when I'm doing my own live streams.
I totally agree with that. And also I would add, like when I do video and I don't have a producer and I'm doing a live stream, then I think if you're deliberate about it and rather than kind of looking shifty, which is very easy to do, I'm not really looking. It's like if I do it deliberately and I'm going, okay, let me now look at the comments. So now I'm looking at the comments and then I'm back again. I think that's fine. I think it's when it goes into that kind of almost in the gaps where I'm trying to look as though I'm fully present, but I'm actually not, because I am having to keep an eye on what's happening in the chat and I don't want to ignore the chat. That's when it gets problematic. So yeah,
I hope that's problematic, Sarah, if you're doing it when you're recording a video, because you need to be looking directly at the camera, don't you? At least that's how I always do it, because I think if you let your attention wander, except for the odd glance away, I think that is the best way. Particularly if your video is quite short, you want people to know that you're present. Yes. But there again, there are some people who are less formal with what they do with their videos, and it is more like a chat. They might, for example, be out walking and recording a video of themselves as they're walking. This is not something I feel comfortable or confident doing, just let me say. But in which case, then they can be looking at the camera for a moment and then looking at where they're walking, and then the camera just sees them side on. And so I think there are different ways to do video that can depend on, again, what your audience wants, what you feel comfortable with, and whether it's something you might want to try as an experiment, because there are different ways of doing these things. So we've been talking about recording videos, but you can do live videos on LinkedIn. Now, it's not exactly live, but you record it and then instantly put it up on LinkedIn without any editing. Now, I'm not like that. That's not something I feel comfortable with. I like my videos to be edited at the front and edited at the end, so they're nice and tight and compact. And so it's a different feel, I think, if you're out walking and you are then doing it as a semi-live video. But it is possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so nice too, as you say, and coming back to what you said earlier, to have this sort of the more casual ones, which I definitely don't do enough of. And it's something I'm going to be looking into and have already been considering doing. And it's just finding the time, funnily enough, to go out there. And because when I do have time off, it's like the last thing I want to be doing is making a video of me having time off or being more casual. So yeah, that's something that I definitely need to be thinking about as well. But yeah, excellent points. And I'm thinking that I can see a few things coming through, and I'm wondering, I'm not looking at everything, but just to say that very happy to answer questions at the end. And we're not going to go for very long today. I mean, I'm aiming to be wrapping up certainly around 20-25 minutes, depending on how we're going. So I think both of us are, Linnea, true to be happy to answer questions at the end as well. If anyone is going, oh, is my question going to be answered? Yes, the answer is yes, it is. So happy to do that as well. I think if I come back to this idea about the body language, and maybe I touch back on the hand aspect, is that there is certainly research, and I'll pop a couple of research thoughts in here too, that when we count, and they did this actually with TED Talks, and they found that TED Talks, some of them were more popular, and they started analyzing what were the most popular ones. And one of the things that people did was they actually count. Great, I can see. So thank you, David. I'll come to that in a moment, that question. One of the things they found was that if you are showing your hands in a TED Talk, of course you are, that if you actually have numbers of 3, they found that that's charismatic to actually have 3-point lists. And I would imagine that most people listening today, you will know that 3, the rule of 3, is very important in public speaking, but also to actually have not only perhaps structured with 3 key points, let's say, but also to actually demonstrate on your hands and have a little drop-down list. That's also very popular as well. So that can be nice. Lynette, did you want to add anything, or should we go?
Yes, I think that's a great idea, and I like to do that too. I can't remember more than 3 at a time, and I don't use scripts. I'm much more, I'll just talk and hopefully get out 1 to 2 minutes worth of coherent sentences on my video without stumbling or stuttering too badly. So I don't, in fact, use a list, but if I am wanting to make sure I do include 3 points, then what I tend to do is to write them down, and I use a sticky note and I put it on the bottom of my camera so that or even on the screen of my camera where it can't be seen because of the recording, but it can remind me of the 3 things I need to include. So that would be a tip that I think is useful for people to remember. If you're not working from a word for word script, so you don't have to remember everything, because I simply can't do that, and the volume of videos that people want to do probably precludes that. But if you put them on a sticky note, stick it on your camera or on your phone, then that's a really good way to have them right in front of you. Your eyes aren't wandering over somewhere else to try and read them. They're right there in front of you, and they keep you on track.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I also don't use a script, because the eye contact is so important, and I just feel that it detracts. And I know that, teleprompters now, they are amazing. They're fine, and they work really well. And you have them on your phone as well. I personally still don't use them, because I like to have that simply feel that I'm speaking directly to one person, which I guess is another thought. And it's something, again, that you may have considered around the fact that really we're just talking to one person through that camera lens. And sometimes I've had clients make a video, and they'll actually put a photo of someone, a family member or someone that they feel like they trust, someone who they'd love to talk to, and they actually just pop that up, just sitting there behind the lens, so they feel like they can speak through the camera to that one person, because I think that can be helpful as well. But I totally agree. And I think this idea of having a script, I'm fascinated to know what people in general do. I talk a lot about working with a script or not when I'm talking to my, high skills presentation clients about what they do. This is a bit different, but yeah, you want to try and remember maybe a couple of key points, and then you might go over it a few times, and then you're in. Like today, I have a structure that I will often use, and I know it's in boxes, and I know the numbers and what goes in the number, each box number. So I do that, and then it's very easy for me to actually picture it as I'm going. So that helps me as well. But yeah,
I think that people don't really want to see overly produced videos on LinkedIn, Sarah. They want to feel that they can know who we are, and that we are genuine, and that we're human, and humans make mistakes, of course. And so when people say to me, oh, I couldn't do it, people wouldn't want to see me, or I'm too this or I'm too that, or I've got a face that's built for radio, whatever it might be, which I had someone say this morning, then I go, but yes, you'd be very surprised at the response that you do get from people. You do not have to be 21 and gorgeous. You can be yourself, and people want to know your expertise. That's what it's all about, is getting your message out there. And you can do it so much better, I think, than you can do if you are just writing it. And Sarah, I'm a former copywriter, a journalist. And so I believe that I've got the grasp of being able to write in a way that can reach people. But I tell you what, video is so much better. And I really had to get over my own personal barriers, which were in my head. They weren't technical. They were in my head about, I can't do this. Well, actually, Lanier, you can. And now you are. And so here we are. Now we're going the next step and doing live stream events, which are even more tricky to do, I think, than just plain video. So I think the more that we can do it, the better we will become, but that people still don't want that overly produced kind of content.
Absolutely. And I agree. And I'd love to come back to that confidence thought in one moment. And I do want to cycle back to David. Sorry, David, it's been a while. I know you were asking about, and I believe I can't see it anymore, but the comment was the research. Yes. Hands, you use your hands and keep them inside the frame. So look, the research that I'm very well aware of around gesture, and there's a lot of research out there, there are two benefits to actually using our hands. And the first one is that it helps us to think clearly. And there has been research done that if we tie people's hands behind their backs and then get them to speak, it inhibits the cognitive process. So that's definitely not what we want. But also that we love as human beings, if possible, to get both the verbal and the non-verbal. So to be able to see someone describing, or indeed, I often talk about some clients, I say that, you are your own visual aid, because some people are just naturally descriptive and illustrative in how they gesture. The clients they will talk about the world and they will do this, and often with engineers who don't quite, sometimes I'm only sorry if you're an engineer, I'm not picking on you deliberately, but I have engineer clients who don't know what to do with their hands and it really bothers them. So it's about having that process of how do I describe perhaps something that is going on, and all of that leveling up or leveling down. So to answer your question, David, and I hope that's helped with some thoughts on that, is that the research shows very clearly that, yes, we like to see it so long as it's not overdone. And it also helps us to think. So, yeah, if you like gesturing and keep them inside the frame, definitely. Yeah.
I need to be a bit careful because I'm an over gesturer. And particularly when it's not so bad when I'm sitting down, but when I'm standing, which is how I usually do my LinkedIn videos, then it can go a bit crazy. So I tend to find that holding my hands together in front of me allows me the feeling of moving, but without it being terribly distracting. But again, Sarah, when the video goes live and it's being seen on the app, there'll be text over top of your hands anyway if you keep them relatively low. So that kind of movement isn't going to be as distracting as you might otherwise think.
Yeah, that's a very good point as well. Yeah, thank you for that. I'm still looking at things, and the confidence factor too, coming back to that. And I didn't like video at all, and I avoided it for quite a long time. Perhaps surprisingly, but I just didn't want to be doing it. It did feel confronting to me. And then I read somewhere and I went, boy, this is so true. And I will often again talk to clients about this, is that if people say to me, oh, I don't like my own voice, I don't want to listen, I don't want to watch myself, I go, look, I get it. But if you're not willing to, why should anyone else be willing to? And let's face it, we all have habits. We all have habits. And often we don't know what we're doing. I mean, I know a couple of my habits and I'm still training myself to see, things I can definitely continue to improve, because it's always a journey and a process, isn't it? But I think one way that can be useful for people is, if you've never thought about this, videotape yourself and then double speed and when you play it back. And for example, if you have a visual habit that you're doing, like if there's some kind of fidgeting going on, it will become so obvious.
That's a good tip. I never thought of that.
Yeah, and I make a joke about it. If I don't watch reality TV, but there are some shows, those shows, I don't know, Love Island or something, and the women have long hair, they're young, and they will be constantly fluffing their hair or putting their hair back. And I always think, boy, if I sped you and double sped you up, it would just be this constant fly swatting. It would just be,
it would be a comedy, wouldn't it? If it's not already.
So if there's something that we're doing that we're not aware of, incredibly useful to know what that looks like. And also to get used to, okay, if I'm being the best version of me, if I'm animated, if I'm having this conversation, and I want to look like that on camera, put on a camera on yourself, videotape yourself when you're just not thinking about it, you're not aware of it, just leave it recording you, and then watch it back. And you'll see what you're doing when you're naturally engaging and you're naturally energetic, because we need more energy to get through the screen. So that makes a difference as well. Now, Linda, I'm sorry, talking over you. I was just going to say that I'm aware of the time, but is there any more technical aspects? I know I wanted to ask you about thumbnails, because I think that's a specific field. Yes.
Thumbnails are really important, because what will happen, and this happened to me just today. I was on a podcast recently, and it's just gone live on LinkedIn and on YouTube. And the thumbnail image of me is, let me just say diplomatically, not exactly what I would have chosen, Sarah. It is not how I see myself. But when somebody else does that for you, then you don't have much choice. But when it's your video, you do have the choice. And so I always recommend two things. One, that you you stop before you start. Before you begin your video, make sure you stand there smiling, so you have got a thumbnail that you can grab and that you can take out as an image. And the second thing is that you should always put the name of your video, your hook, whatever it is that the title may be, in words on the thumbnail, because a lot of people, if they're looking at it on a mobile app, again, they will not see your intro text. When you're looking at it on the desktop, you see the first line or two of text above the video. That is not the case on mobile. All people will see is your image. So you need to put a title on your thumbnail that tells people what they're going to see. Because I don't know about you, but if I see somebody I don't know with no idea what the topic's going to be, I just scroll right on by. Yeah. If there is somebody I know, I am more inclined to look, but even then I want to know what the topic is going to be. So make sure you always use a thumbnail, firstly, and second, that you put the title or your hook on that thumbnail in big, big, big words, so that people can see it nice and easily.
Beautiful. That's such a great tip. Thank you. Yes, I'm learning things today as well. This is excellent. So I am thinking about time, and I think it might be time to consider wrapping up. We're nearly at 28 minutes, aren't we? So I'm wondering if any question that anyone would still like to ask us before we wrap up.
I think that I will. What have I seen over here? Look, I will just put Martin on the stage, and we can have a quick look at what he's saying, because he's definitely not asking a question, but I'm a great fan of Martin and his videos, because he is very direct. He's one of those who likes to be close up to the camera. But he's young and good looking. He can do that. So
it does make a difference.
But he is a very good person to follow, because he does video very well indeed. And I think that that's part of our own education, really, Sarah, is that we could be looking at what other people are doing and learning from that. So yes, we can learn from our own mistakes, and don't we all make them, but learning from other people, I think, is very important. And Martin is one of those who does video very well. He's been doing it for quite a long time, and he's got it down to a fine art. And I think learning from other people, whether that's because they're doing things right or you consider them not quite so correct, then I think that watching other people is a really good way to do better yourself.
Oh, absolutely. And there's clear research on that just simply by modeling and watching others, we start to take that on, and we naturally take on those traits and improve as we go. So yes, love that. That's great. And I'll certainly be following Martin now. We have a question about someone looking for a job from Daniel Linnea. Yes.
The best use of video for someone looking for a job. I think it's really critical to be on video on your LinkedIn profile if you are looking for work. And one of the key ways to do that is to have a 30 to 60 second video of who you are and what you do and your areas of expertise sitting in your featured section. And the idea of that is, because it's a video, people will be likely to watch it, and you can, in that 30 to 60 seconds, it's amazing how much you can pack in. You can really connect with people, not only through the words that you use and what you're telling them about you, but for the aspects that we've already talked about today, Sarah, our body language, the way we smile, the way we come across, the way we dress, what people think about us as a result of that. And I think that if we come across as warm and friendly, but professional and with good expertise, then showcasing through talking about that and what we do on our video is a very good way to attract recruiters and employers who may want to take us onto their teams, because video is one of those critical skills that everybody really needs to master. In the age of social media, we should all be able to do it, even those of us for whom it's a bit of a challenge. And if we can do that then and show that on our profiles, it's a great way for people to see us, understand who we are and what we do, and then hopefully have an edge over the competition, whether that's because of you're looking for a job or you're looking to do business with someone. So I do think it gives you a competitive edge, Sarah.
Beautiful. And I think that's a great answer. I would completely agree with you. And it sounds to me like that would be a good place to wrap up, to think about the fact that when we can increase that visibility on a platform like LinkedIn through the video aspect, is we're going to build that trust, we're going to build connection, and people feel they know us already. And that certainly happens for me when people have watched my videos. They'll meet me and they say they feel like they know me, and they treat me as though they know me. And that's really lovely, an aspect as well. So for anyone who's not certain about it or unconvinced or nervous about it, just start doing it. It's worth it.
Absolutely. Practice makes perfect. Well, perhaps it makes you better, Sarah. I'm not sure that in the case of video, it might ever make you perfect. Certainly doesn't me, but I really, now that I've got over the barriers, I'm really enjoying doing it. And I think that starts to come across too.
Yeah, absolutely true. Yes. So can I say thank you so much, Linnea? It's been fantastic having you on today. An absolute pleasure. And I certainly am believing that this was a useful chat with lots of tips, like packed full of tips for people. So I very much appreciate it, and thank you.
My pleasure. Hope we can do it again.
Hope so too. Bye for now.